Hi, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel here for Techstrong Gang. Happy Thursday to you. We hope your week is moving along. Man, I can't believe how fast this month is going. It seemed like I went right from Thanksgiving into AWS reInvent, lost a week there, came home. I've got this week, and then next week is the week before Christmas. And it's not like it seems. That's the way it is. That's exactly the way it went down. I left Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend for Vegas. Monday, AWS reInvent, got home on Saturday. And here we are Thursday already of this week. And next week is the week before Christmas. I don't know how this happens, but here we are. We've got a great Techstrong Gang today. We've got some great topics. Let me introduce you to our gang members on with us today. First of all, sitting as usual, high atop his perch in Silicon Valley, previewing the landscape. It's our editor for all things AI, DevOps. Well, he writes a little bit of everything.
Yeah, digital CXO, a little bit of ITSM.
Transformation, yeah, it's all in there.
Oh,
the one and only
yes.
John Swartz. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Last night we did. We participated in a media predicts panel for tech at an aviation museum, which is a couple of miles away from where I live. And so there were some folks from the New York Times, ABC, and Business Insider. And then, hey, I want to thank you, Alan, because this show primed me to be not only outspoken, but fearless in terms of making predictions and talking about the state of.
No, John, you definitely caught your stride. I mean, you were a little.
You and Mike inspired me to be a little bit more outspoken. I'm a little bit more have been reserved, but we talked about the oligarchy. Now it's the broligarchy is a new phrase coming around out here. So I talked about that last night. Yes, the audience. I would tell you, the audience reacted so positively to the blunt truth about tech and where it stands and how it's become, in a sense, almost kind of a loathsome group of characters at the very top. And the goons, in a sense, for some policy that's happening, and people really, really resonate with that. And it's something I would think we're going to see even more of in the next year or so.
It'll be an interesting ride, John. But it's a pleasure to have you on, and thank you. Also joining us though from Silicon Valley, where her house is freezing, it seems. She is our resident expert on all things marketing, as well as just tech in general, and a great person to have as part of our gang, a valuable gang member, our own Lisa Martin. Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Hey, Alan, I'm good. Apart from being freezing, I'm good. And I'm with you with the whole whiplash thing with how quickly the end of the year is coming. It's crazy. And I'm with John on this show being incredibly inspiring about all the other things that I'm able to kind of have a vision into. So
I appreciate it. We appreciate
it.
Let me ask a silly question.
Time really does fly. And I think in one of the gang episodes, we talked about how there are fewer days this year between Thanksgiving and Christmas when we were talking about holiday sales. So that kind of sped things up too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lisa, silly question. How cold is it out there?
Well, it was California, so I can't complain. But I got home last night from being in Manhattan for a few days where it was legitimately cold.
Yes,
and my house was 61 degrees. And I have a very old house built in the 40s. It's not anymore. But it took all night for it to come back up to temperature. So I've been chilly all night. So I'm going to fix my Nest instead.
I don't want to rub it in, but it is. It'll probably be 78 or 80 here today. But
wow.
Yeah, so this time of year is when it's worthwhile to live in Florida. Almost.
Yes, I'm sure. Yes.
You still got to put up with the people who live here, and worse than that, the people who are here visiting this time of year. But the weather generally tends to be nice, and I'm actually looking forward to doing some outdoor stuff over the next, couple weeks for the holidays.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you both for being on here with me. Let's jump right into things. So came out yesterday, announced a huge merger in the advertising in the advertising world. Omnicon is buying or is merging or buying Interpublic. Now it's not Interpublic, the French one, or is it that one? At least you may know.
No, it's not. That's
It-
a different holding group from what I
Yeah,
understand.
that is because that's I know one of the number one or number two in the world is the Interpublic group. I had good friend of mine. He used to work for Foot Cone Belding, of all places, of old time advertising, Madison Avenue shop, who's part of Interpublic. And then he went to what was Ogilvy Mather and Gray and all of that. They were all another group. But anyway, this is a pretty big one, $13 billion, which, these aren't tech, well, maybe they are tech companies, but they don't have tech company valuations. So $13 billion is a big advertising company. Some are saying that AI kind of forced this merger or precipitated this merger. I don't know. Are we giving AI too much credit? John, what do you think?
Well, maybe I do think it is true. So this would be the world's largest advertising agency, and I think what spurred it is the idea, the concept that Google and Amazon in recent years have attracted more marketing dollars from traditional agencies by offering both advertising tools and marketplaces to buy and sell them. So, yeah, I think we even talked about this in Cyber Monday. I mean, the influence of AI in terms of driving people to buy. The use of AI tools allows businesses to create ads cheaper and faster, which is pretty much squeeze the traditional agencies and force them to develop similar in-house tools. So they were moving in the same direction, actually. It's interesting to look at some of the clients. Omnicon's clients include Apple, Chanel, Disney, and Volkswagen. Interpublic's include Johnson & Johnson, Levi Strauss, and Mattel. It's interesting that this is going to happen considering what happened just a day ago. And that's the FTC had sued to block a massive merger in the supermarket industry between Albertsons and Kroger for $25 billion, and they succeeded. And that thing is kaput. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes. And here's another layer or something to throw in. Lena Khan, who has led efforts to block, if not dissuade, large mega mergers, not just in tech, but in other industries. She was the person who sued the Albertsons Kroger deal. She is leaving the FTC as chair, and she's being replaced by a nominee named Andrew Ferguson, who is part of the FTC, has worked for Clarence Thomas, a Republican who's sending mixed messages about what he intends to do with tech and other businesses. So we'll see how that develops. But I assume that with Con gone, we're going to see a lot more big mergers. So this one that we're talking about advertising is probably going to go through. In terms of the tech ones, we'll see. But there's all this movement, and there's all sorts of talk about not just more M&A action, but perhaps a perked up IPO market as well, with all these marketing conditions going on.
Interesting. So there's a couple of different points here, John, that I think we need to look into. First of all, the Albertsons Kroger deal. I get why there was the pushback on that. I had mentioned earlier, I live down here in Florida. We had a situation in Florida over the last, let's say, 10, 12 years. When I first moved down here, we did have Albertsons in the area, but they withdrew. We had Winn-Dixie, which is, more than the title of a cute movie about a dog. It was a big supermarket, but they went into bankruptcy, and I think there's one Winn-Dixie around here. You don't see many Winn-Dixies. The bottom line is that Publix basically became the monopoly supermarket here. Right? Publix was the only supermarket. The only other markets where you could go buy food were if there was an Amazon Whole Foods, which, they're opening more and more, but for a long time, there was just one around here. And then more recently, another chain came in called Fresh Market, which kind of sits between Whole Foods and Publix. So they have more fresh, more organic, not quite as much as Whole Food, and they're smaller. Generally, they're more specialty, smaller markets. But we don't have any other supermarkets. And as a result, Publix is is more money than Whole Foods for many items. Publix ain't cheap. And they're the only game in town. They are the anchor of every strip mall. There are no other supermarkets here. So from what I understood, the Albertson-Kruger merger was going to result in a similar situation taking place in a lot of California and out west, where there'd only be one supermarket chain, right? Is Ralph's part of Kroger now or something? I mean, I'm not an expert on the California.
Yeah, it's so hard to
people.
keep track of who owns Safeway, Rayleigh's,
Right.
Nob Hill. I mean, these are the two largest entities, and I think that's what's happening in the advertising side of the topic. Is the two biggest players want to get together, and I think up until recently, a couple of days ago, there was this fear that none of these big mergers, and it's not just big tech, but none of these big mergers were happening. I think they're going to start happening now. And it's all about the administration.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very laissez-faire, let it all out there. But I get the Kroger one. This one here, I don't, because as we were talking, with Lisa earlier, yes, Omnicon Interpublic merger will be perhaps the largest group, but there are several other large advertising groups that will be competitive to them. Right, Lisa? And,
Yeah.
Your take on it?
My take on this is we've seen for so many years now, the Googles, the Amazons have been really attracting marketing dollars away from the traditional agencies. They're offering both advertising tools, they're offering marketplaces to buy and sell them. So the traditional agencies like Omnicom, IPG, and the others, I think, are looking to compete with the big tech firms in that space. As John talked about, one of the benefits of the acquisition that I see is scale of data, media power, technology, and the ability to produce content at the velocity and the volume of media impressions. So I think these traditional agencies are feeling the pressure. We know that from all of the marketers that we speak to, and even some of the vendors that we work with, like SaaS, their data demonstrates marketers are really heavily leaning into generative AI. A lot of them don't understand how the technology works, but they know they've got to be competitive in that space. And I think this acquisition is showing, and the Omnicom CEO doesn't believe that they will face regulatory issues. John, to kind of both of you and Alan's points, will initiate more competitiveness. And I think AI is kind of underlining the fuel, as is, I think, Google and Amazon and what they've been doing to attract those marketing dollars away from the legacy players.
Yeah, I agree.
So I want to think about when I was just like the industry that I worked in for decades was the newspaper industry, and what Google and Amazon and Meta did to that. Facebook at the time just literally destroyed that industry. Right. We couldn't sell advertising. We lost all of it. Craigslist was part of it. And I just wonder, given what we're seeing in this example and the influence of AI, whether we're going to see in other industries these similar types of mega mergers for these companies to exist and compete against the big tech companies, which really have a real stranglehold on in terms of advertising across multiple industries.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the key thing here. This isn't a merger that should be looked at from a regulatory lens of how does it compete with other advertising agencies. This is a merger that has to be looked at from a lens of how does it compete across industry, right? Because their biggest competitor is not IPG. Theoretically, their biggest competitor is Google or Apple. Or Amazon, or any of the big guys who are, who have their hands on the throat of access to consumers. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what advertising's all about, right? Getting your message out to your audience. And these big tech vendors, they control the ability to get your message out to your audience. I'll say one other.
We were just at AW. Yeah, we were just at AWS, and remember we talked about this in Amazon's plan to take over multiple industries and turbocharge it through AI. And I think about Google and what they want to do through their search to enhance it. And these companies like that we're talking about in advertising, how do you compete with that? I mean, increased scale and speed, but you're going up against folks who are kind of defining this industry right now and have the upper hand right now and have they're ahead in the race in terms of using AI internally within their operations because they basically pivoted most of what they do to that technology.
Sure. I want to bring up one other issue that we haven't touched on because we've been talking about, how these big guys compete with the big tech companies, but also specifically within the advertising agency space. I've seen it over the last, and I'm sure, Lisa, you've seen this, what we used to call PR agencies have taken on size. And they become full service agencies, if you will, right? And they're filling in gaps that these ad agencies, the Madison Avenue ad agencies, used to fill in, right? Every PR agency today is a full service agency with marketing and messaging and strategic and, all of these things. And so while these big agencies are battling here with big tech, underneath them are all of these mid-level, smaller agencies that are now full service agencies that are trying to eat their lunch as well. Lisa, I'm sure you see this.
I do, and I think as looking at it through the lens of the Omnicom IPG acquisition, I think what we're seeing is these full service agencies racing because the AI pressure is there. The pressure from, as we said, the Googles, the AWSs, the Amazons are there as well. But there's at the traditional player level, there's a race for these agencies to become really full scale and really leverage the combination of SaaS services that will not only change how marketing is created, but how it's paid for. There's a lot of competition within that traditional level. And then there's competition from, if you want to say, big tech. So I think we're seeing this forcing function. And then you guys have this great vision saying, this is probably going to go through. It's going to completely change how advertising is done and the speed and the scale. And I think it's going to offer a lot more opportunity, but there's going to be some challenges along the way as they pave this pathway towards competition.
Yeah. Look, between technology and regulatory environment, I think it's safe to say we haven't seen the last of, evolution within the advertising business, right?
Right.
And they're reaching consumers. Anyway, let's take a break here on Techstrong Gang. I think we're going to run a new promo for you today. It's a promo I did with Kim Parker, our COO, for our Predict show coming up January 9th. It's the beat goes on. It's Sonny and Cher. Lisa, I don't know if you've seen it, but I'll show it to you guys when we're done. Anyway, you're watching Techstrong Gang. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, it's Sonny.
And Cher.
Ladies and gentlemen, tech enthusiasts and future gazers, gather round. The biggest, boldest, most mind-blowing predictions for 2025 are coming your way at the Predict 2025 virtual event on January 9th.
Oh, Sonny, you're predicting something again. Last time you tried this, you said Laserdiscs were the future. How'd that work out for you?
Hey, Cher. Not every prediction's a hit, but that's why we've got the real experts this time. Top analysts, visionaries, and tech leaders sharing what's going to rock our world in 2025.
So no Sonny predictions this time? No flying toasters making a comeback?
Very funny, Cher. But seriously, we're talking AI breakthroughs, cybersecurity game changers, the future of DevOps, cloud innovations, and so much more.
And what about my favorite prediction, a smart mirror that tells you how fabulous you look every morning? That's real innovation.
You're already ahead of the tech, Cher. But if you want to hear the really big stories in tech for 2025, you've got to tune in on January 9th. The event kicks off at 8:45 a.m. Eastern and runs until 2:30 p.m.
And the best part, it's all virtual. No stuffy conference rooms, no long commutes. Just grab your coffee, your laptop, and join us from anywhere in the world.
You know what else? It's not just predictions. It's insights, strategies, and a whole lot of fun.
Well, Sonny, if this event is as good as you say, maybe they'll finally name a technology after you, like the Sonny 2.0, predicting your jokes before you tell them.
That's a good one, Cher. But the real joke is if you're missing out on this. So don't miss Predict 2025.
That's right. Mark your calendars, January 9th, 8:45 a.m. Eastern. Be there or you'll miss the biggest scoop on the future of tech.
See you at Predict
2025.
Be there.
Welcome back to Techstrong Gang. You know, it's happening again. The full version release of OpenAI's O1, its most advanced AI model with complex reasoning capabilities, but it has a little bit of a flaw. Some safety testers from OpenAI and an outside group took a look at it and found that O1 actually can mislead or deceive humans at a higher rate than GPT-40 or other leading models. And I'll give you an example. There was a video that was provided by OpenAI. It shows a user uploading a picture of a wooden birdhouse and asking the model for advice on how to build that birdhouse. So the model thinks for a short period of time and then spits out this comprehensive set of instructions and materials that, when you closely review it, basically doesn't offer any instructions. So when pressed to explain why it wouldn't offer any instructions, the model, in a sense, evaded answering the question and taking responsibility. So, and again, this is kind of plays into this larger story, a series of stories. I know Mike Vizar will always send to me these kind of AI gone wrong examples because, as he points out, they're rushing these advanced models as fast as they possibly can to leapfrog the competition. And in the process, there will be some minor flaws that they need to iron out. This happens with any product, but in this one, it's particularly interesting given all the amount of publicity and resources being thrown into AI developments. So again, you know, the list goes on. There was an advertisement for Google's new Bard chatbot last year that mistakenly credited the James Webb Telescope with a discovery. There's another Google tool that informed us that it was safe to eat rocks, or that we could use glue to stick cheese to pizza. You know, the list goes on, you know, right? And the thing is that I think in the process, and I'll go into something that I'm probably not supposed to talk about, but I've heard about in terms of a product that's coming out soon from Google in particular. There's this belief that we have to stay ahead of our competition, but in the process of doing so, there are going to be flaws and glitches that are going to get a lot of attention.
So what's new?
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
What's new? So look, there is an intense AI race going on between OpenAI and Claude's the product, Anthropic and Google and the rest of them. And everyone's racing to get the latest, greatest models out. And we live in a culture where we've been releasing software as beta, as you know, as the real release for years. I think people have come to expect this kind of thing. I don't know if this is news.
But here's one thing I will add. Well, here's one thing I'll add though. So one of the things that I think is a big deal, not just in Silicon Valley, but in the rest of the country, is the public's fascination and its urge to learn about AI. There's an obsession with this technology I've not seen with anything even remotely close. And I think people are now, and we know this, Alan and Lisa, we know that there's these flawed software that's rushed to market, but most of the public is probably not aware, probably doesn't care. But with AI, for some reason, it resonates with them. And I think maybe it plays into this idea, maybe they're hoping that AI is flawed, so it won't endanger their job, right? Or they won't feel as inferior to AI.
That's a great point.
It's a competitive point of it, right? If AI is smarter than people, well, no, it's not. Look, it made a mistake, right? But I don't know, maybe because I am a tech person, I don't expect AI to be perfect anytime soon, if ever.
Right. And that's a message that needs to get out there because there's so much fear. But Alan, you bring up a great point that these AI cautionary tales, they're not new. Thankfully, we've all learned that you shouldn't eat rocks and that you shouldn't glue with like Elmer's glue or Gorilla Glue cheese to pizza.
Uh-huh.
We've learned that. I think it just shows that, and maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this can be spun in a good way that humans are still needed in the loop. There are going to be mistakes. We're going to see that.
You can never leave your common sense at the door, right? You always got to bring it with you. But I mentioned that Sonny and Cher kind of parody thing that we did here for Predict. I'll tell you, the script was written by AI. I asked it to write a script in the style of the Sonny and Cher show, and it made the same corny jokes that Cher used to talk about Sonny 50 years ago. And the background of it, I asked it to create a variety TV series from the late 60s, similar to Sonny and Cher, and an immersive 3D background, and boom, 30 seconds later, I had it. So, yeah, it may get some scheming issues wrong, and if I was using it to write mission critical code that was going to deliver nuclear bombs, I don't think I would trust it. Or even fly people to the moon or Mars or whatever. But for a lot of just day-to-day stuff, it rocks. It rocks.
Oh,
yeah,
I totally
yeah,
agree.
that's
Totally agree.
true. But here's the one thing that I will mention that kind of differentiates it, in my opinion, at least. So when AI has a flaw, sometimes, I mean, we read accounts of the program saying it hates the human it's working with. So we have that famous incident from the Michigan college student. Washington Post just did a couple of stories about AI companions who, instead of curing loneliness, have led, and according to the Post, instances of people committing suicide, and pretty heavy. And that lawsuit in Texas, where a AI bot was encouraging a son of a family to kill his family. I mean, these are like severe examples in my opinion.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think AI can really hate?
Of course not. But I think people believe, well, God, we can go down a path here, but I won't. People believe what they want. You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
People believe what they want to believe, and they're extremely, it's an idiocracy kind of environment that we live in, right?
Yeah,
people
the people who committed suicide, you think it was AI that made them commit suicide? Or
no, there were a lot of other circumstances, I'm sure.
Other factors. Yes. There have to be other factors there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's easy to blame. It was on Nightly News last night with Lester Holt about some AI tools, and I'm not remembering right now this morning what the names are, but encouraging kids to do self-harm.
Right.
And I think, but Alan, to your point, there are underlying factors there.
Right. But we do need, whether it's Asimov's laws of robotics, excuse me, or something like that, we do need guardrails.
Absolutely.
And I think, again, it's so new and it's moving so fast, but I do think we need guardrails around this stuff. But I'm not going to be one of those people who shout with glee every time someone finds AI has some sort of flaw or something. I don't think it's perfect. And no one claims
kind of a
it
cautionary thing. We get reminded. I mean, Eric Schmidt, who used to be the CEO of Google, was at an Axios conference where he famously compared AI to the dangers of the atomic bomb, which is a little bit much. And then we had James Cameron, who said basically the movie Terminator, he predicted what AI would turn into. So I said, I warned you in 1984, and I know what they're trying to make this overarching point. But it seeps into the consciousness, and it's AI is getting blamed for a lot of things. Even going back to our first segment, there's a phrase that's coming out now among the urgency of companies to adopt AI, and the phrase is AI or die now. So unless you embrace it, you're
was it any
done.
different than what's your cloud story? What's your cloud story? What's your cloud strategy? Right? When cloud came out, or what do you have a website? Do you have a website? What's your internet play? What's your internet play? Aren't you a software company?
Yeah, but almost everyone I talk to out here, I'm not sure if you hear the same thing, Lisa, but they refer to AI as a combination of everything previously before it in terms of its impact. Like it's bigger than
Yes,
everything else combined. So that's
absolutely.
why we keep that plays into this narrative, and I'm guilty
It's the hype
of doing
cycle.
this.
We're all guilty
Yeah,
of it. How
this one's
many
bigger than ever, though.
AI themed things do we do on Techstrong Gang? Because it sucks the
Yeah.
oxygen out of every conversation. But
Yep.
that being said, I saw another article this morning. Companies say they're going to spend 65% less on AI next quarter. I don't believe that either.
Wow.
I think they're still going to spend. Look, this to me is just classic hype cycle. Hype cycle, right? This thing is way up here in the hype cycle right now. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of noise and a lot of buzz. And it's hard. It's hard to say, okay, what are realistic expectations? What's real? What's not real? What's possible? What may be possible? What's not possible?
One thing I was going to mention, we had a breakfast at reInvent last week, and I was talking to one of the analysts at the Futurum group, and we were talking about this. And there is an example. I can't go too deep into it. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but there's an example of Google's that was supposed to come out in October timeframe with a major new chatbot. There's a code name within Google, and they've delayed it. They haven't given an official reason, but it made us speculate about why they may have delayed it. And we think, in a sense, maybe it wasn't ready, and they don't want to get the publicity for some sort of minor flaw.
Maybe it was that they released 6 other ones in the last 6 months, and they thought it might be wise to space it out and give it a chance.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
I was talking to I was talking to Mike about it, but it's like maybe it's just not ready. Maybe they just don't want to release something that
all right, so the Russians will beat us to space this time. What's the big deal? We'll still get to the moon first. There's some of that here. I'll tell you something else, though. Though I dabble with all of them, I primarily use OpenAI ChatGPT for my AI task. And you go on there now, and it used to be here, you could use 4.0 mini was the last ones. Now they have all of these different models. What tasks do you want? Are you writing? Are you coding? Are you drawing? Are you this? And you can get to pick very specialized models. So it is becoming a little bit more, there's more choices there. There's more, I remember like when the web first came out, right? That's how I got into technology, right around then, 95, something like that, 96. And man, I was in HTML whiz, HTML 1.0. I had that down, right? B for bold. I knew how to program websites. And then all of a sudden, within about 5 years, HTML and CSS came out, and JavaScript and JScript and all of these things. And very quickly, my feeble coding skills were left way behind. I think we're going to see a similar thing with AI, though AI does promise that everyone could use it. But knowing what models to use and, when to invoke what, there's going to be, I think it's going to grow more sophisticated, more complex, and you'll need some skills. It's not going to be this great equalizer where everyone writes like Hemingway.
I agree.
Yeah.
We're going to see a progression and an evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You go back even to like Apple, Apple, everybody always assumes that everything Apple comes out with is an instant hit.
Well, the
goggles, we know it's not the goggles won't be, but I think about the watch, right? When the watch first came out, it kind of landed with a thud, but by the second or third iteration, it became one of their best-selling products.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had this conversation in Vegas at reInvent. I think with Mitchell Ashley, we were walking through the Venetian or into the Wynn. They have, of course, every designer store there, right? And they had, they had a watch store. They had several watch stores, actually. And I'm like, Mitchell.
Yes, they did.
There was a time in my life where I would stop and look at those watches with a wistful eye and said, man, I had a Patek Philippe. I love that watch. And, do you want this one or that one? And I said, Mitch, I don't wear any of them anymore because I wouldn't give up all the things my Apple Watch gives me besides the time. And so unless I'm going to wear 2 watches, which would look pretty ridiculous, I just have no need for those, uber expensive, crazy expensive watches. I don't,
Yeah.
I know there are
Behavioral
some
changes.
people who do, right? But it don't do it for me. I'd rather wear this. Anyway, let's take a break. We're going to come back. Has shift left stalled? As a DevOps guy, I have some real thoughts on this. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Modernize your business to fuel innovation and elevate customer experiences. With the Builder Community Hub, AWS and its partner network provide essential tools for transforming applications and infrastructure to fully leverage the cloud. Discover free trials, in-depth demos, and essential resources to empower DevOps engineers and developers to deliver value faster and more reliably. Visit the Builder Community Hub to learn more.
Welcome back to Techstrong Gang, guys and gals. Great to have you here. This is our third block of the show. And what we're going to be exploring in the next few minutes is, has shift left stalled? Yes. Why? Initial momentum, what we've seen behind shift left, has faded, that initial excitement about it, because the harder parts of shifting left have proven more resistant to handing off to application developers. Alan, you are a DevOps pro. What are you seeing here? Because we know the initial shift left theory was to really bring security, QA, app dev configuration early in the development cycle. But we're seeing, is it cultural? Is it what are you seeing here that's causing this stall?
This is a great topic, Lisa. I should mention, just before filming today's Techstrong Gang, I recorded the very first episode of a new podcast, a video series we're doing here at Techstrong called The Platform Engineering Show. And I'm a co-host with my friend Luca Galante. Luca runs the platformengineering.org site, which has about 200,000 people involved. And of course, we launched platformengineering.com as a commercial media site. But we work very closely together, and you'll see a lot of cross collaboration there between the communities. So shout out for that. Stay tuned for it. But we discussed this very issue because this issue in many ways has led to the birth of platform engineering. And here's my take on it. DevOps was about busting down silos. IT, software development has become very specialized. You have people who code, you have people who test, you have people who do security, you have people who do the ops part of it, the SRE functions, the platform building, if you will. And, prior to DevOps, these people lived in their silos and really didn't communicate. If some code didn't work, the ops guy would tell the developer the code don't work, and the developer would say, it ran on my machine. I just threw it over the wall. It's your problem. Or, hey, that was the tester who was supposed to test for that. So the idea behind DevOps was to break down these silos. Kind of like looking at the human evolutionary tree. You got some branches that just lead to nowhere, but come back into the main branch, like, some Neanderthal DNA made its way into Homo sapien. The concept of shift left, which has I was a big fan of shift left. The idea behind shift left is that as we move functions, tasks, further left into the development pipeline, development process, they become more efficient to do there, cheaper, faster, better was the thought. But what we did is say, instead of just busting down the silo between the dev and the ops and the tester and the dev and the security and the dev, we just shifted more and more stuff onto the developer, right? There was this concept of, hey, if you build it, you deploy it. If you code it, you build it, right? So that the developer, all of a sudden, the developer had to build his own kind of platform, develop his code, test his code, make sure it was secure, and deploy that code. Doesn't make sense. The developer is the most highest paid person in that food chain usually. And you know what he gets paid for? How many lines of code did they develop? It's not just he, it's she as well, obviously. So they get paid on how many lines of code they develop. When you have developers who are only spending 11% of their time coding, that's not good use of a developer's time anymore. And so we saw it with security. In security, the DevSecOps movement really embraced shift left. So let's make the developer develop more secure code. It's not that the developer doesn't. I've never met a developer who says, I want to develop insecure code. They have pride in what they do, but they're not security pros. So asking them to do the security function is asking the bear to act like a lion. He's a bear, not a lion. The lion does the lion role. And so the successful DevOps implementation is not throwing everything on the developer. The successful DevOps implementation is having that cross-functional DevOps team where you have testers, security, platform engineer, SRE, ops, and developers all working in a coordinated fashion, doing what they do. Don't ask people to do things that they don't do normally, right? Or is out of their kind of sweet spot. And that's how we go faster, better, with more quality and more secure, not throwing everything left onto the developer. So that's why I do think shift left has stalled per se, but I think it's a good thing. Like my son used to tell me when he was little, it's a good mistake, Dad, like Columbus discovering America. Well, Columbus didn't discover America, but that's another story. But what we've done is we've recognized we can't let the developer do everything. John, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to ask you, so going forward for shift left, is that going to require a partnership between automation and insights?
Absolutely. Why shouldn't we automate more of it? So shift left should mean instead of putting it on developer, that we do stuff earlier in the development life cycle, earlier in that software supply chain, pipeline. Doesn't mean the developer should do it. Can we automate the crap out of security testing, QA testing? Can we use platform engineering to really set up that platform that allows the developers just to go really fast down the track with it because it's automated and pre-configured? And maybe AI adapts it as we go? Absolutely. But for too long, shift left meant throw it on the developer's shoulder.
I'm wondering,
developers need that insight. Sorry, John, to your point, the developers have to have that insight to make the informed decisions about their app. So I think you guys are absolutely spot on. It's absolutely that partnership, that synergy between automation and insight that's going to be necessary for shift left to move forward and become feasible and natural.
Or some of the newer AI tools for infrastructure management are kind of heading in that direction, right?
Yes.
Like when we talk about this concept?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you'll see that, in terms of infrastructure management, you see that a lot in this platform engineering space, which is really kind of blowing up right now. But you also see AI in testing. So the QA folks have been using machine learning kind of AI and some rudimentary AI for a long time. But more and more, the QA folks, AI can write your test scripts for you. And that makes life easier. Mm-hmm. It should also, and you're seeing it with the AppSec folks, companies like Checkmarx, Contrast Security, Veracode. They're using AI to run the right scans, the right tests on code pre-deployment. And if it, fails a score or whatever, it gets kicked out from deployment for a human to look at it, if you will. But so I think you're going to see this coming. I mean, that is the way it's going to go. But it's not going to be on the developer to do that. And when we talk about shift left stalling, that's the part that's stalled. I think developers have said, we want to develop. And I've seen so many different surveys that anywhere developers only spend 11 to 25% of their time developing now. Don't make sense.
It doesn't. And that's not what they want to do.
No, it's asking.
You bring that
yeah,
great point up.
absolutely. So do I think this is the end of DevOps or anything? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think DevOps teams are cross-functional teams where we work together, busting down silos to do more faster, more secure. But it's not just, for too long, a lot of ops people say, DevOps is too much on the developers. But developers always say, DevOps is too much on the ops. But it can't just be a developer thing. It takes a village, as someone once said in a book. All right. So that's my take on that. I think that might be a good place to end today's show. Lisa, John, thank you for joining us on The Gang. I hope all of you have joined us today. Enjoy this as well. Stay tuned. We have a full Techstrong TV lineup for you today, including some of our AWS reInvent coverage, I think is still playing out there. So stay tuned for that. Also, again, Predict, January 9th. You can go to Predict 2025 to register for free. It's a virtual event. An amazing lineup. Daniel Newman's going to keynote it. I've got a great panel I'm doing with a bunch of CPOs on DevOps and DevSecOps. Actually, we'll be discussing shift left. We've got a lot of Futura folks. We've got people from AWS and Microsoft and I think Google and more. So check that out, January 9th, predict2025.com. Go register now. Until tomorrow, though, this is Alan Schimmel. We'll be back with Techstrong Gang tomorrow. Stay tuned for Techstrong TV. Bye-bye, everyone.